Am I the asshole for telling my autistic brother the truth when he asked me why women don't like him? Watch until the end of the video to find out whether the people of the internet thinks the person is an asshole or not. I've got a younger brother 24 with Asperger's and he's very high functioning, albeit with his quirks. Recently I've moved back home during the stay-at-home orders to look after my parents. My brother still lives with them. I find out he's been trying to date in recent months and confessed it's been pretty unsuccessful for him. He even got to go on a first date, but his date literally got up and left after about a half hour. I know exactly the reason why, and it's not flattering. For one thing, my parents coddled him since he was a kid because he was on the spectrum and was the only boy in our family. My mom in particular always told him he was smarter and more advanced than everyone else who's neurotypical. This has led his belief today that he genuinely is smarter than everyone else, especially women who he thinks are inherently irrational, ideological people. So I know how he interacts with women like me or his other sisters. He tends to say very hurtful things first, and when we get upset, he will then say things like, "You are being irrational, hysterical, illogical. I'm just being honest and you can't accept it." This is like his catchphrase over the years and drives us absolutely insane. Anyways, when he asked me, I basically said, "Listen, the truth is your way of talking to women can come across as extremely demeaning and borderline sexist." I told him he acts like he can read every woman perfectly when he's pretty much always wrong. This struck the wrong nerve with him, and he later complained to my parents that I attacked him over things he can't control. Now I'm in hot water for ruining his confidence, and I feel both bad and kinda relieved at the same time. This was the first time in my life I told him how annoying his behavior is, because growing up our mom always blamed us whenever he got upset. But maybe I was too harsh. AITA for telling him what I said. Not the asshole. He asked and you gave a reasonable answer. It doesn't even sound like you were being unnecessarily harsh. Also, it's kinda hilarious that he calls women irrational, but he loses it after being told the truth. I'd stop coddling him. His autism doesn't give him a free pass to be a jerk. Sorry bro, I'm just being honest and you can't accept it. Stop being so hysterical. Oh, please use it back. This is the only reason I kept reading after that line. How do you not use it back? Because it doesn't work. I've done it, but people who pull the shit are just as awful when you throw it right back at them. The issue isn't being irrational or rational, it's you disagreeing with them. That's what makes you wrong or problematic to them. They just think rational sounds better. He asked, autistic people on Reddit are always saying that they wish people would just be forthcoming and honest about these things. Your parents are the ones who really suck here. They have done him no favors by raising him like this. I'm an autistic person on Reddit and can confirm. Honestly, my life would have been a lot better growing up if anyone, including my family, had ever told me that I was the asshole. Someone did eventually, but not until like college, and now that I've taken the steps to learn about other people and how to interact with them, I'm horrified by who I was. If it makes you feel better, this would have likely happened with or without autism. At a certain age, most people realize a lot of their flaws and grow out of them. I wish more people had called me an asshole because I got away with it, so I didn't change. I'm also horrified by who I was. Growing up is good. I was thinking the same thing, like if you think women are so terrible and irrational, why would you want to be with one? And he thinks they're the irrational ones, but he goes crying to mommy and daddy when his sister points this shit out. He's taking advantage of them. He's realized he'll always get his way and that everyone else will always be made out to be the bad guy because he's the one that's considered disabled. The reason I initially was going to think YTA was because of the title, and I thought you were going to straight up say they don't like you because you have Asperger's. I think the parents telling him he was smart and special plus autism making communication and social skills harder to grasp made this happen. He doesn't understand the social cues, but instead of getting help from friends and family like X. You are being too blunt when you say that. Try to say it like this: he got a superiority complex and never actively tried to learn social cues. It isn't his fault 100%, but he is not hallucinating and his actions are his choice, so he reaps what he sows. It will be hard, but he needs to learn. I think it made it worse, but this type of coddling is very common with boys, especially when they're the only son. Op even mentioned it as a factor. There are obvious sexist roots by the way he apparently talks to women, and sexism has nothing to do with autism. Coddling of boys may be a common factor. Autistic girls learn to mask because the behavior, even innocent behavior like stimming, is shut down real early. And it's a struggle to know why you have to follow the social rules that you do. I'm an autistic woman myself, and I had to learn a lot by asking questions and observing people's reasons for not doing certain behaviors. Autistic boys don't tend to have people telling them that what they're doing is wrong. Agree with this, as I am an FAB autistic person, so I mask my symptoms my whole life. Wasn't diagnosed until like 27. This is so relatable it hurts. Just piggybacking off of this to say Asperger's is an explanation, not an excuse. I have Asperger's, as other commenters have noted. Breaking ASDs into high and low functioning has some issues that come along with it and doesn't always paint an accurate picture of what's going on. That being said, and it bears repeating, Asperger's is an explanation, not an excuse. The entire reason behind getting a diagnosis is to try and figure out how the person can learn and adapt given how his or her mind works and processes information a bit differently. And most importantly, how to adapt and develop relationships with others given these differences. It sounds like OP's parents treated her brother's condition the opposite way that they should have, as a reason he acts and is the way he is. And a reason he shouldn't be expected to change. Sure, Aspies will always be different and quirky, but the diagnosis isn't an excuse for failing to try and adapt to other people. If you're reading this, ask your brother if he thinks that women are inherently illogical and Aspies are inherently logical. We're not, by the way. We just value logic a lot, and he would know this if your parents had dealt with the diagnosis correctly. Ask him how he explains the existence of women with his condition. And there are tons of men who aren't on the spectrum, they're inherently illogical too. His own logic breaks down the second you dig a little deeper, as is often the case. This all just goes to show that this isn't about the brother's Asperger's, it's about his sexist attitudes. He has a problem with women. And women have a problem with him, for good reason. Yes, part of why he's probably developed these views is because he's been hurt by women not liking him because of his condition. And that's probably part of why what you said cuts so deep. That being said, he's exacerbating the problem with his attitude. He needs to grow up and realize that he has responsibility for the way he acts. Again, Asperger's is an explanation for some of his difficulties, not an excuse. Not all Aspies are assholes, but this one is a huge one. I would love to date an Aspie guy, but I'd run like hell from this one. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. If you don't tell him, some other woman will. I think it's better coming from someone that actually knows him, or else he could just write it off as an illogical response from some angry woman. Could it have been done more tactfully? Maybe, but I think your brother is dangerously at risk of being an incel if you aren't straight with him. Autist here. Tactfulness might not matter to OP's brother. We do tend to strip things down to the contents, so if OP had been more tactful, i.e. sugar-coated it, then the brother would likely have misinterpreted or kept asking questions to make OP be more and more specific until he said the tactless version. By the way, a lot of the autistic community is like this. People like to ignore it and pretend it's not the fault because criticizing those with disabilities is frowned upon, but I see this a lot. Pure logic equals good, no exceptions, crossed with public media conscious and subconscious opinion of women being emotional and illogical. Crossed with an inability to evaluate sources often ends in autistic males having this personality trait. They also often subsequently decide they're being discriminated against unfairly and are the victim of the situation, making themselves hateful incels and the situation of their poor dating success even worse. Very much want to second and third this. Male and autistic myself have also seen this a lot, also tends to go hand in hand with a feeling of superiority over all those irrational neurotypicals and such, I found. Rather annoyingly, when you drill down a bit and start poking some well-reasoned and argued holes into that whole logic all the way, emotion loses routine. It turns out they're often not particularly receptive to actual logic and tend to get rather emotional about it when challenged on their views. And usually not fans of irony either. Really sounds like OP's parents did her brother no favors the way he was raised. At this stage, hard to see him getting and listening to the kind of feedback he needs to turn things around for himself. Even if he did get some, his parents will just continue to undermine that. He's definitely tar, but I also do feel for him. Not the asshole. You didn't insult him, you gave a dose of truth. If he wants to be in a relationship, he needs to fix his attitude towards women. Agreed. Ask him if he would want to be in a relationship with a woman who talks to him the way he talks to them. Give examples of things he's said. When he says he wouldn't want that, tell him it's just logic that women don't want that either. I don't know, a lot of times these types of guys will also get deep into the pickup artist type bullshit, partially because it tends to affirm their worldview. Women want to be insulted, they don't want to have to think, they prefer a man who's smarter than him and shows it. If you asked if he liked it, he'd probably just say, no, but I'm not a woman. Not the asshole. Your parents have raised him to be a sexist narcissist and now he can't find anyone to put up with him. You are actually showing him more love, telling him the truth so he can change than your parents do sheltering and lying to him. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised he wants to date women since he's so sexist and narcissistic. Not the asshole. Sexism is sexism. Your parents are asshole for the record too. Not the asshole. People with disabilities can still be assholes. He's taking advantage of it. Either he'll realize you're right and get his shit straight, or consistently be upset as he fails over and over. He's going to go through life thinking that girls don't like him because he's autistic. That won't be true. It'll be because he's an asshole. Not the asshole.